Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Becoming a Professional. I'm your host, Rilley Ramos, this week, and we are in Atlanta for the first of 3 mid-year meetings here in the U.S. So actually, this one's a kind of a special episode because one of our host chapters, Kennesaw State, helped us set up this cool centerpiece with books from the service activity. So again, thank you, Kennesaw State. Hooty hoo, yeah. Shout out to them. And we got a couple people in the back too, so we love to have our little audience. And so before we introduce our special guest, let's go through our usual housekeeping. This episode is brought to you by the National Chapter Beta Alpha Psi. Enormous appreciation for their support. Make sure to sign up for the Alumni Member Network if you haven't already, so we can easily connect and have y'all experience all the benefits that the network has to offer. So disclaimer, the opinions in this podcast are our own and may not reflect the position of Beta Alpha Psi or our respective employers as a whole. So on this week's episode, we have BAP alum representing the nonprofit industry. Now, with many years of experience in project management, philanthropy, and fundraising, please welcome Executive Director of Path to Shine, Chris Ferguson. What's going on?
Hey, thanks. Welcome.
Hey, how you been?
Here.
Yeah.
Good. That's my first podcast, everybody, so I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, not nervous or anything? Not nervous?
A little bit nervous. Yeah, there's cameras, there's a light. It's so professional, which I appreciate.
We have our little setup.
Y'all are so enthusiastic, too, but y'all made me feel very comfortable, so I appreciate that.
Oh, I love it. But yeah, so happy to have you. Path to Shine is the, the company that we're doing our
we're the benefiting
service
charity.
activity.
We're very, very fortunate to be selected this year. We appreciate it, definitely.
Love it. Okay, so now just to give you a rundown of the podcast, how things are normally done. So we're just going to go into our origin story.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much like your background. And so, yeah, let's get into it.
Sure. Well, yeah. Again, as you mentioned, I'm a Beta Alpha Psi alum. I went to Georgia State for my undergrad.
Okay.
Got a undergrad in business administration with a major in accounting. So I'm a Georgia kid, born and raised here. Looked at a bunch of different college options, but decided on Georgia State. I was thinking back on my, kind of the initial accounting. I actually took my first accounting class at Georgia Perimeter College.
Okay.
I did what they called back then joint enrollment. Now they call it dual enrollment. So I was a senior in high school and took some college classes. And so one of the first ones I took over there, took you basic math, but I took an accounting class. Like I grew up in a business family. My uncle's an accountant. So I was like, let me take this accounting class. And so that was my first exposure to accounting, which I kind of had forgotten about. So
interesting.
Leading up to this. So yeah, went to Georgia State, focused on accounting and joined Beta Alpha Psi. Once I was eligible, Georgia State has a pretty big chapter. I'm sure they still do. So it was definitely a big push hey, you're eligible, you should join Beta Alpha Psi. So that's kind of how I got introduced to Beta Alpha Psi.
Okay, and then what did the initial stages of your career look like post-college?
Post-college, it was definitely not your traditional path. So while I got my degree in business administration and focused on accounting, I really enjoyed the accounting classes and did well in them. I particularly remember cost accounting. I still remember that Carol Springer was my professor.
Okay.
For whatever reason, cost accounting really stood out. I really enjoyed the breaking down the cost of we used to say widgets back then. We still say widgets.
Yeah, no, we still use widgets. We still use widgets.
So that really stood out. And then, so when I graduated, again, I was fortunate. I had a good GPA. I was in Beta Alpha Psi. I'd done, the networking thing, going to the career fairs, going to the Beta Alpha Psi meetings. So, fortunate to have, a variety of at least loose offers. I remember, I got to the point with one firm where they took me out to lunch, to kind of with a junior partner, and that was fun and exciting kind of thing. But I ended up accepting a job with a company called, I think it was UPS Supply Chain Solutions.
Okay.
So it was a subsidiary of UPS, and corporate job. I was actually in the finance department, but to be honest, one of the main reasons I took the job was they had bought, as part of the hiring process, they were like, hey, we bought this company in San Francisco. And we're hiring a bunch of you new grads to kind of take some jobs that maybe people that are not transferring or not moving in or reorganizing how we're going to do things. So you got to go out to San Francisco to learn the company and learn the job. And they're like, some people don't want to do that. And I was like, sign me up. Like, I'm going, So was fortunate that my first really weeks of the job, I spent 37 days straight in San Francisco, all expenses paid by UPS, living in a Marriott and learning the office there. So that was kind of like the highlight of my accounting career and
awesome.
finance career. Because when I came back here, again, I'm a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, kind of stubborn graduate. Came back here. No offense to UPS or any of our employers, but the culture at the UPS Roswell office a bit different than what I experienced in San Francisco, right? And I was in a cubicle, literally doing spreadsheet projects all day. And unfortunately for me, I was pretty good at them. So they're like, "Hey, you're really good. Here's some more spreadsheet projects," So, so that kind of got me to I just didn't have a passion for that, and so that kind of led me to, admittedly, I quit that job pretty soon after I got didn't last a year. I'll say that. Did go back to school because I wanted to be eligible for my CPA. So I took another class, which became my favorite class. Took a forensic accounting class,
Ooh, interesting.
which I loved. It was cool because the professor had his own firm. He basically was a forensic accountant, and he had these crazy stories of he got hired by a client in Russia and had to go over to, this is all these crazy stories. And the big class project was a case where we were put in teams, and we had to they said, "Hey, this company, something's, you've been brought in because something's not adding up." And so we basically had to we were these teams, and we could hire a private investigator. You could do all these things to try and find out. And I remember one thing that stood out was that my team didn't necessarily do all the right steps, but the team that you hire the private investigator to follow someone, then they went to a PO box where these checks were going, and it was it led to the whole, it was how you crack the case, that all these checks were going there. And so that, was really excited by forensic accounting. But at the same time, I started substitute teaching. I got a lot of family in education, so I started substitute teaching. I just love being around kids, I realized. Yeah. And so that kind of led me on my nonprofit career, which took me away from accounting, but led to, program management and fundraising, and now an executive director. And of course, it all relates.
Yeah. And then now you're at Path to Shine. So I guess to give our listeners and viewers more of a backstory to that, what is Path to Shine?
Sure. So I started Path to Shine in May of 2024. So Path to Shine is a nonprofit organization. It's a mentoring organization focusing on K through 5 youth. And so it was developed. It really came out of the Episcopal Church here in the Atlanta area. A deacon was real passionate about serving youth. And couldn't find the right fit for kind of how she wanted to serve youth. Really having a high adult ratio, right? So a lot of after school programs, which I love after school programs, but it's one adult for 20 kids. And so she really wanted that more connection, that more mentoring organization or set up. So she developed a curriculum and became a ministry, and then evolved into a nonprofit where we have typically one adult for every 2 kids that are in the program. Often it's 1-to-1. So right now we're operating.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah. So right now we're operating in 6 different sites across the metro, and serving between 12 and 18 kids per site with 10 to 18 volunteers. And it's a 1-day-a-week program. Consistent volunteers, consistent youth. So you're really building relationships. And in theory, the kid can be in it from K through 5. So it's really a 5-year model to mentor and help that child grow. And literacy is a big part of it, right? So we know that reading and being able to be on grade level reading-wise has a big impact on academic performance and academic success. A lot of the kids, there's a good mix of kids, but some of them are maybe came first generation in the U.S. or came to the U.S. after being born, and so maybe English is not their first language, or English is definitely not their first language at home.
Yeah.
So having some extra literacy support and some extra just homework support, and someone that cares about them, shows up for them every week, is really our goal.
Yeah. And then do you see the children in this program, they go on to become mentors themselves, or?
The data says that there's a lot of national mentoring data that people that were mentored are more likely to be mentors. Our program has been around 10 years, so we have some students that might be
starting to get into that rotation.
So we've had some great success stories where we had a valedictorian. We've definitely had a number of kids that were the first to go to college in their family. So we like to think we played a role in that.
I love that. And then so we're always happy to be able to have an organization like Beta Alpha Psi be able to partner with with companies or charities. And so having, what is it? This is Books of Hope. So Books of Hope is where we have the students bring in essentially a book drive.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like it really makes a difference in able to bring like just having one book for a child, because some of these children don't have books.
Exactly. Yeah. If you grow up around books and with access to books, you may not know that a lot of people don't have access to books or don't have a book of their own, right? We all, often a lot of us had that one childhood book we carried around, or I see Harry Potter on the table, Hungry Caterpillar. These are classics that for a lot of kids, like that's maybe still their favorite book. But unfortunately, the data says that something like 20% of households with children don't have a book in the home. So upwards of 60% of households with low income families, the children don't have a book of their own, and a book in the home. So there really is still that reading gap, that book gap, that makes a difference. And so that's part of our goal, is that every year at the holidays and end of the year, each kid gets 3 new books to go home with them.
Okay.
Yeah, for the semester break. And then all throughout the year, we're trying to give them books. If they show interest in a book, we're giving them that book. Or if we do a group activity every week. So if they show interest in that book, we're happy to buy copies for the class. That sort of thing. So it's all about and then also it's in a very supportive environment, right? So we all struggle with, I stumble over words, things like that. So it also helps the kids often get over their maybe issues reading aloud, or not being able to ask for help. You don't want to ask for help in front of the big group, but when you're with your mentor, you can be like, what is that word? I'm struggling with that. So it can really make a big difference.
No, I'm looking at the selection of books right now, and so it's like definitely some classic literature that I see here. I mean, it'll be interesting though for whoever the student was that brought in Art of War. That'll be interesting for whichever kid finds it.
There's always one that doesn't read all the details.
Definitely for the reader enthusiast. But that one, I thought that was funny.
Well, I think that's also fun. In my role for the holidays, a lot of kids, we could try and get them books they actually want and read, right? So we had the kids select, or tell me some topics you want, or hey, you want these books. So Dog Man is by far the most popular.
Okay.
If you didn't know, movie coming out, which everybody's excited about, but it's like there's a new Dog Man that came out. That was like on everybody's list. So
yeah.
It's basically a graphic novel. So it's also great for all basically it says 2 through second grade through 12th grade is you can read it. So it's also very accessible. So it's like, that's also a cool thing that maybe you're not the strongest reader, but you can say, hey, I'm reading Dog Man, and the strongest reader is reading Dog Man too. So you find those commonalities.
Because I'm also at least graphic novels starting in high school. That was a thing too when I was in high school, that we started reading graphic novels or incorporating it, and so it was really interesting that you don't really see that often.
Yeah. And I think that's what's also cool shopping for books is there are all the classics. I see Nancy Drew, but there's such diversity in children's literature too. Whether it's topics, whether it's characters, whether it's authors. So most of our kids are Hispanic, Latino, or African American, and so it was great to be able to find books that had diverse characters, authors that reflected the students, that sort of thing. So I had fun shopping. Went to a local bookstore and spent over $1,000 buying books.
Easy.
Yeah, so it was so much fun, and the staff there loved it too, because they were like, they get to pick out their favorite books for the kids. So that's been great too.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, and then remind me, what was your initial exposure to Beta Alpha Psi?
Yeah, so I don't exactly remember, but again, I'm sure I went to an informational meeting pitched by one of the accounting professors or one of the classes at Georgia State. So again, I went to Georgia State, pro undergrad, downtown campus was where the meetings were, and so part of it was Georgia State. It's one of the largest universities in Georgia. And particularly, I graduated in 2003, so this is 20 years ago. There really was no campus. It was a true urban university, right, where they'd bought a bunch of buildings and controlled a lot of the real estate, but there wasn't we had a quad area, but it wasn't, you're very on your own, right? So you could kind of come and go as you pleased, which was good. You just kind of make your own way. That's classes you could take from early morning to late at night.
Okay.
Great for, working adults. So that was a cool mix of students, a lot of international students. But with Beta Alpha Xi, it really was one of the first things I connected to and stayed involved in. Because I would go to a lot of meetings or go to something, but your schedule changes or something. But Beta Alpha Xi, I really connected with it, stayed involved, went to the meetings regularly, went to the networking events. I remember some service projects going to a diabetes walk, things like that.
Interesting.
That I really wasn't doing with any other organization. So, and then they really do beat it in you that like, hey, this if you're trying to have an accounting career, stick with Beta Alpha Xi, and you're going to have access to employers. So
Yeah.
that was really it for me, going to the meetings and sticking with it.
Yeah, because initially it was founded 1919 primarily for accounting.
Okay.
And then so now over time, we've also incorporated finance, information systems. I think we're also including business analytics, at least for my alma mater. We're definitely trying to hit up the business analytics majors.
Interesting. Okay.
But definitely
Did not know
it's very much expanding, very much
Yeah.
growing. It's essentially mainly just to benefit the financial community.
Yeah. What's funny is, in a fun way, like there's kind of like accounting was our own world, right? So it was like accounting versus finance, accounting versus information systems. So it's cool to hear that it's maybe not as territorial as it used to be, and trying to because the reality is once you get in these jobs, you're working in teams, right, across different departments. Then also your role is often not just straight accounting, right? You got to have other skills that come to the table as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, I double majored accounting finance because honestly, I didn't know the difference between the two.
Yeah.
Like trying to pick a major, like young and dumb,
Yeah.
but definitely going into it, you definitely see the nuances, the differences, the opportunities within the different majors. And so, but it wouldn't have been like that had I not been in Beta Alpha Psi.
Gotcha.
At least it puts you in front of the professionals who actually will tell you up front, like, this is what we specialize in, this is what we cater to. Think of it from this perspective, that accounting is this, finance is that. But it's definitely one of those things that, okay, who knows? I would never know if I hadn't been part of the organization.
Yeah. And that reminds me, one of my favorite classes at Georgia State was a finance class, and it was like a business case study class.
Those are fun.
Yeah,
Case studies.
And it was where the professor created his own book. I remember he had to go to the print shop back in the day and buy his copy. But I remember one of the case studies was he used a point in time early in Home Depot's development. Of course, here in Atlanta, Home Depot, is king, one of the kings. A homegrown success story. And so it was like part of the case study was you had to decide if you're going to give Home Depot a loan.
Okay.
And it was based on a true story that early in their formation, they were at an inflection point, and they needed this loan to either survive and grow or not, and so it was really interesting. I remember going through the data and all that. So I really took to the case. Anything that was like real life oriented, that's what I really enjoyed.
Okay.
Yep.
And then so you mentioned your favorite class. Do you have a favorite Beta Alpha Psi memory?
I mean, I do. I like the. To me, the service project, like again, the diabetes walk really stands out, and it was. But I think also just for me, it was the consistency of something. Like again, I was not necessarily involved in a lot. I was working part time, but I just wasn't doing a whole lot. So it was really just having a place to go every time we had a meeting, and getting that exposure. So, that's really what stands out is the
kind of have like an anchor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then again, I remember having lots of conversations with. I think also part of it just I was a lot more reserved back then than I am now.
Same.
So
Same.
So it got you comfortable. You realized that this person in his fancy suit does have a fancy title, but they're friendly and they're willing to talk to you. And if you ask them a question, they're not going to bite your head off. They're going to answer it. Little things like that just kind of helped develop me professionally. Definitely was part of the Beta Alpha Xi experience.
Gotcha. And then as far as so 2 questions before we close because I'm looking at the time.
Oh, okay.
One piece of advice that you would give to your younger self when starting your career?
Just be more patient, be more patient and be more accepting, be more open. I was very stubborn and very, headstrong and, you just thought I knew everything, right? So I think part of it is like when you're frustrated, particularly early on in your career, when you're really frustrated in a role, like it's okay to talk to someone and let them know you're frustrated or let them know, I think I can do more instead of just being like, they don't appreciate me, they don't value me, I'm out of here, which is kind of what I did, and then I think, again, I mentioned forensic accounting. There was also, I think it was in I think it was Miss Springer's class, Professor Springer's class. She had one of the guest speakers at one point was a guy that specialized in the music industry. He was an accountant, and like I remember he had like the Bob Marley estate. He had Outkast as his clients. So,
Okay.
So that was really interesting, but I didn't follow up. So I wish I would have like followed up more on the more like interesting aspects, to kind of help plan my path, right? So I got to do 2 years doing whatever, but if I can think past that and go ahead and make these connections, so networking more, I guess, would be just being more intentional about networking, realizing it may not be an immediate thing, but 2 years, 3 years down the line, I'll be able to call that guy and be like, hey, I got my CPA. Can I come? Are you hiring? Can I come work for you? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, just even though we all maybe live in big cities, or it's still a small world, right? So like networking is so important, and networking doesn't mean like kind of the art of the informational interview is also something that I developed later in my career. So like asking someone for something when you don't need a job, right? Like, hey, can I just come talk to you about what your job is? Or I'm trying to figure out what's the difference between accounting and finance. Can I come talk to you? And I found, later in my career, everybody loves that. But as a 22-year-old kid, I was too nervous or intimidated to do that. So,
So these are things that you can definitely do earlier in your career to set you up, at least build that strong foundation going into it. So it makes things a lot easier down the road, like having that strong network.
Yeah.
And then also, last question, how did BAP help you become a professional?
Yeah, well, I think we've hit on, a few of the examples of it, just kind of helping me come out of my shell as a kind of transitioning from a student to a professional, right? Learning how to talk to people and ask questions and be part of just a group that was of like mind but had possibly different paths. And just really supportive, right? Realizing that they want you to be successful, and so it's okay to ask for help or be part of kind of that process.
Right, and it's not necessarily like you don't have to. There's no like traditional pathway per se.
Yeah, which I think that's something I realize now. It took me kind of a winding path because I use QuickBooks now, right? So like I hadn't necessarily I hated journal entries back then. I still hate them now, but it's relevant to my world as a nonprofit, and so in the nonprofit world, and I think that's the there are the corporate path, the audit path, the tax path, but for me, people would be like, oh, you're good at accounting, you must be good at math. I'm like, yeah, I got some skills, but really it's problem solving, attention to detail, things like that are relevant for all roles. And it really helped me when I did fundraising, now that as an executive director, where I'm managing budgets and all that stuff. So I think accounting is still the foundation of my professional career, even though I'm not a CPA or a true accountant.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, regardless, you're here, you're executive director. I mean, you're doing something right. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
But yeah, no, well, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. I'm like looking at the clock, and I'm wishing we had more time.
Definitely.
But thank you, Chris, for guesting on the episode. It's definitely been a blast to have you on here. I'm glad that we actually got to see the books that you'll be able to take to Path to Shine. And I mean, it was a pleasure to hear about your professional journey. And so to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us from whatever platform you're tuning in from. And then also check out the show notes for our various social media pages and official BAP swag. Once again, thank you, Chris, for being a guest on the episode. And with that, we'll see you on the next episode of Becoming a Professional. Hey everyone, Riley here with the credits. This episode, titled Books of Hope, Making a Community Impact, was hosted and produced by myself, Riley Ramos, and accompanied by our special guest, Chris Ferguson. Music was sourced from Resolute Audio and Fine-Tune Music on Adobe Stock. If you haven't already, please join the Alumni and Member Network. Details can be found in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of Becoming a Professional.